Thank you so much.
The ones
For
that
working with
seem
me.
to
Hey,
be
everybody.
are the millions. You are the breakthrough. You, the patients taking part in clinical trials. You, the scientists doing next-level research to beat cancer.
We have about 20 seconds.
Okay, perfect.
Tirelessly care for everyone along the way. Let's be the breakthrough.
To learn about screenings and clinical trials that may be right for you, go to standuptocancer.org/breakthrough. Stand Up to Cancer is a program of the Entertainment Industry Foundation. Please
10 seconds.
healthcare provider about appropriate screenings and clinical trials that may be right for you.
Stand by.
WCPT 820, Chicago's progressive talk, where facts matter.
We can change the world, change the world, change the world. Yes, we can. We can change the world, we can change the world, change the world.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
War and hate to a place of love, it's not too late. Gotta save the children, we can't wait. Let's change the world.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Santita Jackson Show. It is Tuesday, December 12th, 2023. It's a joy to be with you today. You know, we're going to have a peace summit at Rainbow Push, but a lot of organizations are convening to pull this together. And it starts on Friday. Want you to come on out. It's going to be great. It's going to be great. It's going to be great. And we're going to be talking about that throughout the week. It'll be a rainbow coalition. It'll be a rainbow of voices and lots of people who are coming together. John Nichols will be on to talk about it. He's one of the organizers of it, as is James Zogby. A lot of people have expressed support for it. Cynthia Nixon, Susan Sarandon, among others. If not now, and so many people are coming together. We want a ceasefire, and we want it now, which leads us to this conversation today that we're going to have here on WCPT 820, the nation's largest progressive talk radio station, and AM 950 radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. Meet my morning stars on the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel. Hey, Ashley. Hey, Robert. Hey, Shirley from beautiful Philadelphia, and Ashley from beautiful Memphis. Hello, Robert. How you doing? Andre, my I was about to call you my baby brother. He's my god brother. Hey, you know, let's talk about 70% of Americans want a ceasefire, right? Okay, just about. Pew and other data collection services, polling services are showing that there's overwhelming support by the American people for a ceasefire, and yet. The Biden administration did an end run around Congress. Now they're debating it, trying to negotiate it in Congress. What's going to happen? And they bypassed Congress to send more than 10,000 pieces of munitions to Israel. Yeah, that happened. So we got to talk about that. And then we have to talk about what happened in Texas. Kate Cox, the Supreme Court said she's got to have the baby. So she and her husband have left the state. Which makes her husband legally vulnerable as well. But she's been going to the hospital, cramping, bleeding. Her life is in danger. So this is what happens in the post-Roe v. Wade world, everybody. We're going to be talking with Denise Parker. I didn't want to stop her yesterday. The woman who is driving, the mother who is driving, the matriarch who is driving this Gabriel's toy giveaway, so toy, food, and clothing giveaway. She's dealing with something that a lot of us deal with during the holidays, sadness. When her son died, she said, I became so angry. But she said, I did something. She said, because I know my son would not want me to stay here. He didn't want me to stay in anger. And that's not how he lived. So I had to find a way to get out of that. And I think that her story can be inspiring and help you today. So we're going to speak with her at the bottom of the hour as well. So we got a lot to talk about on the Santita Jackson Show. So let's get right to it. And a young Palestinian American financial expert who ran for Congress trying to serve. And I'm so excited to have Rami Blond with us later on today. And Aaron Niederman from If Not Now. It's going to be a packed show. So stay right there. Call us at 773-763-9278, 773-763-WCPT, and let me know what you think the big story is right now. Tell me. I mean, did you know we are 5 weeks away from the Iowa caucuses? Just 5 weeks away. And as we begin the headlines, I guess we should begin there, Alex. The fact is, the signs for for the presidential election, even though they're early, they're very, very interesting. According to CNN polls, now Trump leads Biden in the Iowa caucuses, 5 weeks just outside of the caucuses, and in these swing states of Michigan and Georgia, the numbers are telling. Biden approval ratings in Georgia are down to 39%. In Michigan, they're down to 35%. Remember, the largest concentration of Arab Americans is in Michigan, everybody. In Michigan, you've got Trump at 50%, Biden at 40%, and neither at 10%. But guess what? When you introduce Cornel West and Robert Kennedy into the mix, they pulled 26% of the votes away. Now, I shouldn't say they pulled them away. 26% of the voters prefer them. And Trump goes down to 39%. Biden goes down to 31%. So I don't want to frame it, so forgive me, as Robert Kennedy and Cornel West taking votes away. People have a preference, and we have the right to that. In Georgia, Trump is at 49%, Biden at 44%, neither is at 7%. And even as Trump's charges loom, in Georgia, almost half the population, and in Michigan, they feel that they would be disqualifying, but we still don't know what's going to happen. Call me at 773-763-9278. What do these numbers mean to you? What do they mean to you? I want you to call me at 773-763-WCPT. Ukrainian President Zelensky is visiting D.C. today, everybody. He'll meet with President Biden at the White House and make the case for more aid to be sent to Ukraine. The Supreme Court could fast-track Donald Trump's appeal in his D.C. trial. He claims he is immune from prosecution for alleged election obstruction in 2020. The court will consider short-circuiting its usual process, it said yesterday. The Air Force disciplined 15 people in an investigation into the Discord leaks. A lack of supervision helped a 21-year-old airman, Jack Teixeira, to share hundreds of classified documents online. I wonder how many of these people, the Jack Teixeiras and so many, how many of them might be dissenters? That story's not getting told. That question's not being asked. The Texas Supreme Court ruled against Kate Cox, the 31-year-old. She petitioned a judge to get an abortion in Texas, which has a near total abortion ban. You're supposed to have exceptions when the mother is endangered, when her life is endangered. Her life has been endangered. She's constantly going to the emergency rooms, bleeding and cramping, but they said no. And indeed, the Texas Attorney General said he would sue her and anyone who helped her. Well, now her husband got her out of state. And so she is going to have that pregnancy terminated. The longer she keeps the pregnancy, the more likely she is to be infertile. They said if the child is born alive, the child would have a very, very torturous death. And of course, that is something that they wanted to avoid, everybody. Had 2 NFL games last night, everybody. The Packers fell to the Giants 24-22. The Titans 28, the Dolphins 27. That is a heartbreaker. Both of them are. In the NBA, the Bucks 133, the Bulls 129. The Pelicans 121, the Timberwolves 107. In the NHL, the Chicago will be playing the Oilers tonight. We'll have a high of 36 degrees in Chicago today, and it will be cloudy. In Minneapolis, St. Paul, 29 degrees will be the high. You know what? Let's get right to this, everybody. I want you to call me at 773-763-9278. What do you think the big stories are? What do you make of these numbers? We're just 5 weeks away. I can't believe, where did these 4 years go? We're just 5 weeks away from the Iowa caucuses. Who do you think is going to win? Will we be surprised by anything? And what will be the impact of these Trump trials? It seems like these trials have him going from strength to strength. His numbers are growing in the Black community, in the Latino community. Who knew? Talk to me, everybody. Call me at 773-763-9278. 773-763-WCPT. I want to know what your thoughts are. And I want to know what your thoughts are about this Texas case. What do you think should happen with Kate Cox? Do you think that it was right to force her to have this pregnancy with all of the complications? She's already got a couple of children, but this particular pregnancy could end her opportunity to have any more children. It could render her infertile. So I want to know what your thoughts are. Call me at 773-763-9278. Dr. Shanina Knighton, how you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. How are you?
I'm grabbing you early this morning. Bless your heart. Thank you so much. And you know what? The good news today is, everybody, very quickly, blessed are the peacemakers. Blessed are the peacemakers, and love your neighbor as yourself. You will be blessed when you make peace, when you are a peacemaker. Don't just talk about peace, be about peace. And peace requires justice. Peace requires love. Peace requires mercy. Peace requires that we evolve and become who God needs us to be. That's what peace requires. Not quiet, peace. And you should love your neighbor as yourself. First of all, you need to love yourself so you can love your neighbor as yourself. Most of us don't love ourselves, and we treat our neighbors accordingly. So let's work on some self-love, everybody. And when we begin to love ourselves, you start treating people differently. You become kinder, more compassionate. Think about that. Think about that today. Whatever you feel about the termination of a pregnancy today, I hope your prayers go to the family of Kate Cox and her husband and their children. This has got to be the most difficult decision that they have got to make. What mother wants to terminate a pregnancy? Who wants to do that? Whatever you feel some compassion and walk a mile in her and her husband's shoes. How you doing, Dr. Shanina Knighton?
I'm doing pretty good. How are you?
I am doing well. What do you want to bring to us today?
So it's interesting. You mentioned loving yourself as you would love thy neighbor. And essentially, we talked about it yesterday, and that's just being aware of your own germs and your own actions. And I think the most important thing is, if we think about how we interact with the world and how we interact with others, do we save others? So specifically speaking, around a lot of the same habits that we've been talking about before. I know that it's crazy when I could beat, hand hygiene in like, a dead drum because of its importance. But I just want to point out that only 5% of people do it correctly. People often miss where the thumb meets the hand. They miss doing their fingernails. They miss doing their wrists. They might miss doing the webbing of their fingers. They miss doing it, having friction for 20 to 25 seconds. Some people will literally put the soap on their hands and then hurry up, rub it around, and then rinse it. You have to remember that the soap has to have time in order to be able to work and interact with your skin. Similarly to a disinfectant. So with a disinfectant, Santita, and I'm switching topics really quick, disinfectants have something on the bottle called contact time, meaning that for people that spray and then they wipe immediately, they're not getting the effectiveness out of the bottle. And when the bottle says that it kills 99.9% of germs, if you do not allow proper contact time of that disinfectant, then there is no guarantee that you've killed the germs that are on that surface or whatever it is that you're trying to clean. That is very important because a lot of individuals may think, oh, well, I sprayed down this seat, so it should be clean. But not allowing proper contact time is a problem because it won't get as clean as you think it is.
So wait, so hold on one second, because most of us do spray wipe. I mean, even, like when you're cleaning, spray wipe, and you're like, wait a minute, you need contact time when you're cleaning a surface and when you're cleaning your hands.
Absolutely. And the irony of it is when you are, let's say, spraying something down and wiping it really fast, and let's say you're using a rag. So let's say I'm wiping down multiple tables in a venue, and I'm spraying and I'm hurrying up and wiping, right? Technically, what people should do is they should spray, go around and spray, and then come back and wipe, starting from the earliest table up to the last. if you were doing multiple tables. That would be an example, okay?
Okay.
The other piece, so if you are using, let's say, the same rack, not allowing proper contact time, then means that you are spreading germs from one area to another. So instead of you thinking, hey, if I'm spraying this disinfectant and I'm cleaning this area, or let's say I'm cleaning a table and some chairs, you're now taking whatever germs that are on the table and you're transferring it to the other surfaces because you did not allow proper contact time before you moved on to that other item. So when this happens, people are shuffling germs instead of cleaning up germs because nothing is being killed. If, let's say, there was someone with the flu or someone that had a cold, and you're like, hey, I need to spray this down because such and such was in here and they look like they were sick. Well, if you don't allow proper contact time, any germs that they have or viral shedding that may have occurred did not necessarily die because you did not kill it off by allowing the proper contact time. So if the contact time on the bottle says 1 minute, that disinfectant must sit on that surface for 1 minute before it is wiped up.
So
If
really,
contact time says at
wait.
least 30.
Look, stop.
Yeah.
Because one of the things that we don't do, you pick up the alcohol, you pick up the Lysol, you pick up the mask, you pick up all of these products. But you're saying, you've been saying this, I just want to emphasize this, that there are instructions. There is a way to wear the mask. There's contact time you need in order for the soap or the disinfectant to work or the sanitizer to work. When you're spraying your products to clean, you need contact time. Yes? You need to read the
That is
instructions.
correct.
Okay. I know I'm like pushing, but these are
No,
things
that's
that,
it. Read the instructions.
yeah, I mean, these are things that we're not thinking about, Dr. Knighton, you know?
Yes. And when the EPA approves products, they approve them and the verbiage that they have. So if something says that it kills a certain fungus, or if it, let's say it kills COVID, if it, is a virus, if it kills, influenza, or something says 99.9% of germs, they've had to have proper contact time and have that disclaimer on there of how long that disinfectant has to sit on the surface in order for it to work. I do remind people, please read your labels. Make sure that you do allow your disinfectant to sit before you wipe. Otherwise, you're wasting products because you're using too much of it. Secondly, you're using it ineffectively because you're not giving the solution enough time to work on the surface before you wipe it up. Otherwise, the same rag that you are using, cloth, tile, you're spreading around germs instead of preventing them or killing them.
It just does not stop, y'all. Read these instructions. Dr. Shanina Knighton, everybody. Hey, Dr. Nina, HEYDRNINA, sending you so much love today. Thank you for joining us a little early today, but not even a little early. I can't wait to talk with you about Black women and infertility. Why so many women are struggling with fertility. Black women in particular, we're more likely to be infertile and we're less likely to get the help for it. And having babies for Black women in the United States is extremely difficult. And more Black women don't want to go to the hospital to have that baby. Isn't that interesting? We got a lot to talk about, Dr. Knight. Yeah, we got to do it. Sending you so much love today. Hey, Dr. Nina, HEYDRNINA. Coming up, let's talk with attorney C.K. Hoffler very briefly about what happened in Texas. Kate Cox, the Texas State Supreme Court ruled against her, terminating the pregnancy. That could render her infertile. That might kill her. That's certainly going to kill her child. What do you think about that, everybody? It's a post Roe v. Wade world. Let's talk about it on the Santita Jackson Show. Back in just a minute. Thank you, Dr. Knighton. I'm about to bring up C.K.
You're
Hoffman
welcome.
really, really quickly to talk about this.
I think that's is interesting. Just how complicated things are, because this does again come down to privilege.
Oh my gosh,
So
absolutely.
yeah, so it's unfortunate,
I think it's just a horrible thing.
and it is. And I honestly say one of the things that concerns me is the fact that there's no, or it seems very rarely, is there an ethical body, that's detached away from, let's say, the federal government, from individuals to assist with some of these decisions. And I'm talking about, even if it's not a branch of government, it should be a branch of government, because when you think about how technologies are employed, how social media is used, the ethics behind, some of the laws and stuff, it just floors me that some of these things are not thought about before someone, can provide, let's say, a ruling on how something works. Like, it just doesn't make sense to me.
Well,
Never
no, they're
has.
thought about. Honestly, they think about this stuff. I just think that what you're dealing with is, I mean, because remember, this feels like what happened to black women in slavery. I mean, it's not like we haven't been here before. We've been living here for more than a minute. We don't want to talk about it, but heaven knows this is our story. And I am someone, and I've said this publicly, I'm someone who privately, would I do an abortion? No. But that's my business. It's not only, first of all, it's my business. It's my business. And I'm not going to blame anyone who, I'm not going to blame anyone who has to make that decision. I'm like, are you kidding me?
All your guests are on.
Okay. No, I wouldn't do that to anybody. But I'm not going to make my personal journey public policy. This woman is at risk of death. Like, what is on your mind? That's just like some slave master who's telling me I got to do this. I got a problem with
But isn't there something else? Like the ethics of, I'm sacrificing my life, and the fact that there is no exception. Like, that's crazy.
It's not right. It's not right. She's going to the hospital. She's cramping. She's bleeding. What else do you want her to do? You don't want to do prenatal care. You don't want to help. You kick the woman out the hospital after a day. She could still have the afterbirth. These people don't care about you having a baby. They could not care less. They don't care. And I'm stepping all over CK. CK's here. CK, how you doing, Tony?
Good morning. Good morning. No, I'm enjoying the discussion, Santita.
I'm just
it's a
mad.
tough discussion. I'm enjoying the discussion.
1 minute.
I am listening to the discussion. This is something that was completely predicted. I have to tell you. And where we see it most, and good morning, Dr. Knight, where we see it most, of course, is in our Black brown communities. But this case in Texas is involves a white lady. And first and foremost, globally, we know what will happen. I'm not saying she's of means, but if you have the means, you're not going to be embroiled in this. You're going to simply get on a plane, get on a train, charter a limo, and you're going to go to a state, have the abortion.
30 seconds.
End of discussion. And your doctor will tell you who to go to.
Absolutely.
Okay. So I want to be very clear. That's what people who have means, who are middle class or above, will do.
Wait a minute. And then you go to
no
school.
matter what the state,
or you have a friend who's a physician because you went to school
10
with
seconds.
them, and they just take care of it. Let's get real.
well,
Stand by.
There's some doctors who previously
Stand by.
Change the world.
And we do have Chappelle on, right?
Can change the
Yes, all your guests are
and
on.
Mr. Nice. Okay.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
And hate to a place of love, it's not too late. Gotta save the children, we can't wait. Let's change the world. I am breathing.
Hey, everybody, welcome back to the Santita Jackson Show. Before we talk about really getting through the holidays are really tough for people. Let's talk about it here on the Santita Jackson Show on WCPT 820, the nation's largest progressive talk radio station, and AM 950 radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. Let's talk about this decision. We just talked about this story yesterday. Kate Cox, 31 years of age, married, mother of two. She got tragic news. She's pregnant with her third child, and she was told the child's not going to make it. In fact, this child has a disease that is going to kill the child. If the child is born alive, the child will die a torturous death. If the child is born, more than likely you will be infertile if you survive the birth and the pregnancy yourself. Texas state attorney general said, I'm going to sue you. You better have this baby. And now the Supreme Court has ruled, the Texas Supreme Court has ruled that she must have the child. She and her husband have left the state. They're able to do that, thankfully. I don't know what their financial situation is, but because of the profile of the case, there are people who will assist them. What about poor women of every color? What is going on in this case? Before we talk to you, Denise, about Gabriel's toy drive, where you're going to be giving away food and clothing and toys at 8540 South Racine on the 17th. Before we get to my beloved Denise, and we've got Chappelle with us too, Denise Parker and Chappelle Wells, I want to talk to you, CK, before you get to court. First of all, you're going to be on Court TV this week?
Actually, I'm on Court TV this evening, again from 6 to 7. I won't talk about the fact that I was on yesterday. I'm sorry, Santita, but this evening I'll be on 6 o'clock p.m.
You know, we're going to do better in 2024. Whenever you're on, you're just going to come on and do a quick bump. Hey, I'm about to be on, y'all. Bye.
Okay.
That's how we're going to do that. Is Dr. Knighton still here?
Yes.
We were having this conversation, and CK was like, no, I'm laying back because I'm just having the conversation. I'm just a layperson. CK, of course, is a brilliant lawyer. Dr. Knighton, registered nurse, infection preventionist, college lecturer, PhD, global health professional. I'm just a woman with an opinion. And I just think that this case is so dangerous. Just from a health perspective, CK, before we get to you very quickly. What is just from a health perspective, what are the health challenges that face Kate Cox, Dr. Knighton?
So I think without going in depth of, let's say, her actual medical record, it's very hard to understand that aspect. But I just want to point out, outside of the physical challenges that are occurring, to me, it's the ignoring of the fact that she already has 2 children. It's the fact that we're not thinking about mental health, that mental health issues or challenges that occur for women that do carry a child, knowing that their child may come out with special needs. In her case, knowing that her child will not make it, then knowing the possibility and the stressors of the fact that not only would her child not make it, but then she may not even be here to raise her other 2 children, the existing 2 children that she does have. And I think just that in itself, when we talk about ethics, when we talk about being human, that's something to me that just should not be ignored, because that in itself has some negative stressors and health implications, period. Like that's going to impact her regardless. So even if we're not talking about the details of how this is putting her at risk for death, if we're not talking about the details that it has been ruled, that her unborn child would not make it, just those factors, again, alone, is a tough decision that would need to be made. And so for someone to rule against her having that autonomy and essentially telling her, you don't have an ultimatum or a choice. You're going to have this baby, run the risk of your baby dying, run the risk of you dying, and you not be here for your existing children and your husband. That is a stressful situation, just as a woman, just as a mother, just as, again, the neglect that women already put ourselves through in taking care of our children and others, that would be hard for any woman to face. And it's very important that we are taking a look at this, because she's the one that is, let's say, going through this right now. But there are other cases out there, or women that are similar to her, that may not have as loud of a voice, that may not have resources, and in some instances may not even be on this earth because they did not have the support, the advocacy, or the means to go to another state to get it done. When we talk about health alone, Santita, and you talk about the social determinants of health and the fact that you mentioned Black women are at higher risk for infertility, imagine being faced with these sorts of decisions. Imagine being faced with knowing that your child may come, into this world and not be here long. If not, having to deliver a baby that's not even going to make it or won't make it upon birth. That's a challenge within itself, because we forget about the contractions. We forget about, everything that the body has to undergo for a woman to have a baby, for the end result to not be a baby at the end, or a baby that you won't be able to love for long. So that is, it's unfortunate, but that would be my health take on it without having all of the exact details of the case.
Well, you got a lot. I only have a few more minutes because I want to move to Denise Parker and what she's dealing with, because we're dealing with mothers, I guess, in this segment. In about 4 minutes or so, CK, what are we looking at here?
Absolutely.
What is this?
Well, Santita, this is a mess. This is what we predicted. This is sad and tragic. And in Black and brown communities, it's 1,000 times worse. Fortunately, for this mother, she had the option of traveling someplace else, and she's going to take care of her medical necessities. The question is it the state or is it the doctors that are making decisions on a woman's reproductive system? This is one of those cases, and by the way, there are hundreds of women documented here in Georgia who are facing similar situations, mostly minority women, who are having to carry babies to term that are definitely not alive. They know they're not going to be alive because of these laws here, because the laws that are precluding them from making a decision to terminate their pregnancy over medical necessity. And as we now see, as we predicted, medical necessity is not any medical necessity where a mother's life is at risk or when the fetus's life is at risk. It's whatever the state deems it to be. And that in and of itself is a political issue. So what we're seeing here, Santita, is there are going to be thousands of women who continue to be at risk. I will tell you personally, I've had a miscarriage. The psychology of what Dr. Knighton is speaking of is so real. But it's one thing for you to have a miscarriage when you're pregnant and it happens. It's another thing to know that your child will not make it, and you may not make it, and you've got to make some decisions. And the state is saying you've got to put your life at risk. You've got to put your child's life at risk. So a woman, what is her legal recourse? Well, this is what the state says. You got to sue the state. You've got to sue to try to repeal or overturn that law. But by the time you go through that process, if you're successful, you would already have done whatever medically you would have done. Most women don't have the options to go see a lawyer to have that case, but they want to take this on because this is a political issue. This is a nationwide issue. This is what the U.S. Supreme Court determined should happen. The U.S. Supreme Court reversed itself. It overturned Roe versus Wade.
We have a caller.
Case that governed on the law of the land, that women could make a determination in terms of their reproductive rights on what should happen with their body when they're confronted with certain situations. That was the law of the land. The U.S. Supreme Court overturned it and said, now it's up to you, states, to determine how you're going to regulate this. And Texas is one of those states that determined that you can be prosecuted civilly. So let's talk about Ms. Cox if she comes back to Texas. Let's talk about what could happen to her legally. because Texas has a law where anyone who helps in the process could be open to liability, could be open to monetary damages, could be open to being sued, could be open to criminal charges. So her fight is not going to be over if she decides to come back to Texas. Me, myself, and I, if I had the ability, I would never set foot in Texas again if I were her, because she is going to face the consequences of saving her life and of preventing her child from suffering if her child is born and lives for a very, a few days or for a period of time, if the child makes it. And we know that death is certain for the child and it will be a very painful death. So all of these things, Santita, are legal questions that every single woman would have to confront in these states where there's a ban on abortion, where there's the state interfering with a woman's ability to make decisions about her reproductive rights. And that's the mess that we're in. That's the tragedy that we're in. That's the situation that we're in, where our grandmothers had more ability to say what was going to happen to their bodies than we do. And that's a tragedy.
And
no matter where you fall in the abortion question.
And they had no space.
And
they had no space, none. Let me bring on Lee. Denise and Chaparral, hold on. And and Denise and Chaparral, you all can weigh in too. But let me bring on Lee. Lee is calling in. Lee, how you doing?
Good, fine, Sandy. It's great to talk to you again. The woman that was just done talking is amazing because she's enraging about things that every human should be enraged about. Every human. Nobody should allow any government to do this to a human being. And yet the American people are saying, well, we'll have to see what the courts think. We'll have to see what the judge thinks. We'll have to see what the district attorney thinks. That's bullshit.
Yeah, watch out now.
People should never allow anyone to be treated like this. This is inhumane.
And what makes me and what angers me is that we've been here before. We didn't learn lessons from this. This is what Black women went through for hundreds of years in this country.
Yes.
We were forced.
Yes.
That's why when you see Black people walking down the street in the United States of America, and when Black folks have kids, you never know what they're going to look like, because we are a genetic jumble because of what we experienced, not just on the plantations, but just living. Because Black women, if we were raped, no one was prosecuted if white men did it. And it happened all the time. That was what Rosa Parks was famous for in Alabama. But, that happened to Black women. Okay, now white women. I mean, enough of this war on women. This is just, this is horrific. This is horrific. And I don't care what you feel about abortion. This woman's going to the hospital now, she and her husband. She has to, as Dr. Knighton and as Attorney C.K. Hoffler said, this woman's looking at her husband, the 2 children she's got, every day. She's scared to death. Very quickly, Lee, your last comment, sweetie.
Yeah, I love to talk to you about 6 other issues. One is Biden is supporting genocide, and it's the most disgusting treatment of humans you could imagine. Mm-hmm. And he still is, all we're seeing is his polling numbers are going down. People should be running to him with guns saying, Biden, if you don't stop this, we're going to kill you.
No. I can never. Lee, stop. I cannot do that. I don't want anything to happen to the president. We're not going to do that. We're not going to espouse violence here. We're not going to do that. We're not going to do that. But I do not sign on to genocide. And I think if the Democrats better take a strong stand on this. Otherwise, I got a problem with you. I'm not going to do that. More than 17,000 Palestinians have been killed. And the Israeli military went on record more than a month ago saying that they were not focused on damage. They were not focused on accuracy. They were focused on damage. And that's what they've done. They've killed people. I'm not with it, but I'm not with it. I'm not with hurting President Biden. I'm going to continue to agitate and pray so that he will change his mind. So I'm sending you much love, Lee, but don't call here. Don't get on this chat line talking about violence. Don't do it. Don't do it. I will not sign on to that here. I want the people love President Biden too. Not just politically. They love him personally. He's a father and a grandfather and a husband. I don't want anything to happen to him. People used to threaten my father on a regular. I didn't want anything to happen to him. I don't want anything to happen to anybody. Now we have got to learn to disagree without being disagreeable. Get out in the streets and protest and demonstrate. Get yourself to the polls. Get registered to vote. That's the way the system's been structured. Make it work. Work the system. Stop letting it work over you. I love you, CK. And I love you, Dr. Knight. And we're going to continue to look at this story. And really, I think we've got to continue to separate it out so we can look at women's rights. Because women are getting wiped out here. We're being called chest feeders, persons with wombs and whatnot. Look, I'm with y'all and all the struggles that everybody's got. But I'm a woman. And I've worked real long and I've waited a long time to get here. And that is what I am. And I'm fighting for us. Period. And that includes my trans sisters too. That having been said, but you need to acknowledge what biological women deal with and what we go through. Let's get together in this fight. CK, CK and Dr. Shanita Knight. And I want you to stay here. This woman's very special to me. She does my hair every week. And Denise Parker, you never know what people have gone through, Chapearl. And we're talking, and she looks, CK and Dr. Knight and Chapearl, she looks like a model. So I'm like, okay. So, I'm thinking she's got little kids. No, she said, no, I've got 7 kids. Oh, right, Denise. And I'm a grandmother. Are you for real? Yeah. She pulled out these pictures that fell to the floor. I said, Lord. But she also lost her son. And she said, when I lost him, it broke my heart and I became angry. But my son, at the age of 17, started a toy drive because he wanted to give it love and encouragement to battered women. So I said, you know what? Wait a minute. Let me finish Gabriel's work. Do I kind of have it right, Denise?
Yes, you do.
All
Good
right.
morning.
Good morning. And I'm going to bring you back so you can continue. Is Dr. Knighton still there? Is CK still there? Are you all still there?
I'm still here.
It's a beautiful story. And it's a very inspiring story at this time of year because most of us struggle with anger about so many things. We have so many disappointments, Denise. And of course, on the 17th, what time does this toy drive begin? It's at 8540 South Racine, right?
Yes, and it started at 12 to 5 p.m. until we run out of toys, clothes, and food, etc.
Oh my gosh. And gift cards. And she and her family funded this initially, but I really need you to get out and support them because it's not just a toy drive. She is well aware that many mothers and fathers are struggling. So you can go there and get food. They don't ask you questions. If they have clothes that your child can wear, you get them. The toys, food, you can go to 8540 Racine. How did you get through this anger? How did you get from anger to where you are now? Because that to me, that's a tough one, Denise. That's tough.
Yeah, it is tough. And I was like a single mom raising 7 kids.
Mm.
And living in, I had my first child when I was living in the project.
Mm-hmm.
And I just I had 3 kids living in the project, and I was just like, I don't want to live like this. I don't want to wait on once a month, public aid check or whatever. So I just took myself across the street. We used to have stores and liquor stores, and I'm like, okay, I'm going over there and getting me a job. I got 3 kids to raise. I'm going to get out the project. So I went over there. I worked at the liquor store. I worked at the grocery store. I worked at the grocery store for these many hours, then went across the street next door and then worked at the liquor store for these many hours just to get myself my kids a better life. So I did. I moved and got a house and stuff, and so now I had kids. But with Gabriel or whatever, I had Gabriel, I was 6.5 months pregnant. And I went in the hospital and they took the ultrasound. They said it don't look good. They was like, Like he's gonna be like 1 pound 9 ounces and stuff through the ultrasound. So, I'm like, okay, so I'm just praying to God, had my Bible, and they took me, they said I had to have a C-section. So they took me in, prepped me up, and then the nurse like, oh, you can't take that Bible in. I'm like, oh, I'm taking this Bible with me, and I just put it under my pillow. And I was just praying while they was preparing me for the C-section. And Gabriel came out 4 pounds, 3 ounces. Nothing wrong with his lungs are strong, everything. I don't think he couldn't do is grasp a bottle yet. But other than that, so me and his father decided, like, we're going to get his name because he's a miracle baby. Because I had the accident, like, in 2000, and I lost my son. And then I turned around and had a daughter and lost her, and then they said I couldn't have no more kids from the engine caving in on my stomach. Because that's how I lost my first son. His organs got messed up from the engine caving in on my stomach. But anyway, Gabriel, so we put names out the Bible, 4 names out there. We grabbed the bag and we shook the bag, and then we got Gabriel out of the bag, and that's how his name came, Gabriel. So Gabriel was like, he was very, very, very smart. He used to tutor. He was always ahead of his class. He graduated at the age of 17. He went to Atlanta for college, and he's been real estate school at the age of 17. And then, so, the day he was like, he wanted to, on Thanksgiving, he asked me and his siblings, he wanted to do a toy drive, so, about women and children. And he's like, would y'all donate toys? And we was like, of course. We were surprised. We was like, okay, we're going to support you. And then my son started having seizures at the age of 3 months. But they was under control. He never had one. So he had one at 17, like a flight one. And then he had one in his sleep. And that's how I lost my son at the age of 18. I lost him in 2020.
You know what? Stay right there. Because you know what? CK, you still there?
I'm still here.
And Dr. Knighton and Chaparral, we're gonna have a part 2 tomorrow. How about that? You're gonna be back on at 6:30. Sure. Because I want you to finish this story because it's a very powerful story to me. And I think it's a very powerful story to the audience. 8540 South Racine, December 17th, starting at 12 noon. A toy, food, and clothing giveaway. This is what this mother has started in Gabriel's name. This angel, her son. This son. And so I want you to please get out there and support. And I want to thank our listeners who are going to go by and contribute so they can continue, so they can help her help somebody else. Because that's what this is about. Because you see this climb that she's been on. And look, I have a special love for people in the PJs, Denise. When my parents were finally able to get their own home, guess what? The first home that Santita and Jesse and Jackie Jackson had was in the projects in Greensboro, North Carolina. Hallelujah. And my mother planted her flowers in the front, and she sewed the curtains. And because when I was born, my parents didn't even have a home. We lived with the Halseys. So, you know what? You never know what God's going to do with you, right?
No.
You never know. Stay right there because you got a live read on the other side. 8540 South Racine, everybody. December 17th, starting at 12 o'clock. A toy, clothing, and food giveaway. Chaparral, you there? It's just a very powerful story. It's just a very powerful. Oh, it's a powerful story, and we're going to do this. We're going to have the part 2 tomorrow because I want to know how she got from anger to where she is right now. I want to know that about you too. And all y'all do is work all the time. Maybe that's part of it too. Always trying to help somebody. My mother says all the time, you can't help someone without helping yourself. 8540 South Racine, December 17th, starting at 12 noon. Please, if you can, get on over there today and contribute. This is a very, very worthwhile endeavor. People need love, encouragement, and they need some help. Back with more of the Santita Jackson Show in just a few minutes. So I'm gonna get you back up at 6:30 in the morning, Denise, because you're gonna tell the rest of your story. But I want you to tell it. I want you to invite people at 7:00. Okay, to stay right there. But CK and Chapearl and Dr. Shanina Knight, and I'm gonna have to let you all go so we can get these others in. But I want to thank you all. It's a powerful story, is it not?
Absolutely. And I look forward to hearing more about it tomorrow. Thank you, Santita.
Oh,
goodbye.
And thank you for giving us. Thank you, honey, and we'll get you back on tomorrow. And thank you for giving us the skinny on what's happening in Texas. And CK.
Yes.
Tomorrow, can you explore what could happen to her husband?
Yeah, I will. I'll be prepared to do that. And also, in July of this past year, I lectured on this at the National Medical Association meeting and had really a closed room session with African American doctors in our community who are very concerned. And some of them said, right now, this is if it weren't for my oath to serve and to save lives, I would quit the profession. So, because that's how disheartening this is. We're doctors, I think we need to look at it from a doctor standpoint, having to make a choice to not give someone a life-saving treatment when that's what they need because the law has stepped in. That's another legal question and angle that we should look at, Cynthia.
Well, can we get someone from the National Medical Association?
I can reach out. Practicing doctors, that's why I said the closing tests are not going to want to speak about this.
Oh, well, what about the former president or somebody?
Right, I will, like Dr. McDougall, but I'll reach out and get. I have a family law. I lecture a lot for the family law section, and I'll find maybe a retired physician or somebody who's willing to speak out who's made this an issue in their practice. But if you think about it, practitioners are living day in and day out and making decisions. And some of them said, I'm going to choose the woman and I'm going to choose my patient every day of the week and just pray that I don't get discovered. That's what a lot of doctors are saying. I'm not saying who the doctors are. I'm not saying what group they belong to, but some doctors are just saying, I'm still going to save the patient. So that's just in general. And I'm not ascribing them to any group because I don't want to, implicate anyone.
No.
But it's so significant of an issue in our community, in Black and Brown communities, and in lower income communities, because this is an economic issue as much as anything.
Okay.
Okay, Santita, I'll be ready.
And girl, thank you for being on today. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
I just had to call her real early to try and work this out. But we got a lot going on, everybody. A lot going on today on the Santita Jackson Show. And everyone, when you call in, I realize that these topics can be very, very provocative. But please watch your language, okay? Please do that. Please, no cursing on the air. So haven't you noticed how the vibration changes when you use profanity? Now, I'm not saying that I haven't used profanity, but it makes me. When I used to hear it as a little girl, it used to make me cry. And that hit me the other day because it sounded violent to me. And my mother said I was always a little different. I could cry all the time. But it does make you think, it does make you think about that. So 17,000 plus, almost 18,000. Some calculations have them at 18,000 people, Palestinians have been killed. Oh boy, what are we doing? What are we doing? What are we doing? What are we doing? What? What are we doing? So everybody call us at 773-763-9278. The World
All
Health
your guests are
Organization.
on.
Okay. And let me hear who is on with me right now. Dwight McKee?
Yeah.
Okay. Attorney Mark Fancher?
Yes. Good morning.
Hi, Dr. Gibbs?
Good morning.
Is it Rami Blond?
Yes, it is. Good
How
morning.
are you? Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you for having us.
Oh, no.
Really appreciate it.
New to the family, but hey, now you're here. What'd you say? Oh, no.
It is an honor, so I do appreciate it. Thanks for including me as part of the family.
I know you said, oh, no. What does that mean?
I love family. I have a rather large one myself, so I'm happy to keep it going.
Well, oh, my gosh. Well, that's what
1
we
minute.
do. Once you've been here, that's it. Okay, so it's one of the first times I've ever heard someone go, oh, wait a minute, what? You're really part of the family.
Wait.
Yeah, wait. I don't know what that means. That is crazy. I'm sorry. Excuse me. You caught me on that one. That was good. Oh, that was good. But and I hope you're going to run for office again.
That is the goal. Absolutely.
Go on and let's talk about that. There's some people who can talk to you about that.
Absolutely. So it was during the 2022 election cycle. Literally woke up, during the signing period, we had to go out door to door and gather signatures to be placed on the primary ballot. And I've always had an affinity for politics, but I knew that
30 seconds.
This was during the 2021 bombing of Gaza that just made me wake up and say, I need to make this different. And I went out and went door to door, and it was a couple things happened, right? It was
stay right there.
Experience.
I want you to talk about it. I definitely do. Stay right there.
10 seconds.
Everybody gets to wake up.
You're talking about 2021. What happened?
Stand by.
No, but it's okay. Stand by. We're coming up.
Okay.
We can change the world, change the world, change the world. We can change the world, we can change the world, change the world.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
War and hate to a place of love, it's not too late. Gotta save the children, we can't wait. Let's change the world. I am breathing.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Santita Jackson Show. WCPT 820, the nation's largest progressive talk radio station, AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota, and the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel. We've got a lot to talk about today, and I want us to get right to it right here on the Santita Jackson Show. 17,000 plus dead in Gaza. What is going on, everybody? And, you got to remember the IDF said that they were not looking for accuracy. They were looking to inflict damage, and they have certainly done that. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about the moral insanity. That is the headline in Common Dreams. The Biden administration has bypassed Congress to rush tank shells, more than 13,000 rounds to Israel, as 2/3 of Americans want a ceasefire. Call me at 773-763-9278, 773-763-WCPT, and let's talk about it. We're going to have a peace summit at Rainbow Push. Dwight McKee's part of the organizing of it. We can't wait to have you there. And of course, Attorney Mark Fancher got to get you there, and John Nichols will be there. It's going to be something really, really special. And we want you, Rami, everyone who can come to. We are going to organize for peace, which means we are also going to have not just quiet, but justice. There you go. I want you to call me at 773-763-9278, 773-763-9278. Let me know what you think about the Biden administration bypassing Congress to rush tank shells to Israel. We said we don't want that to happen, and yet that did happen. Call me at 773-763-9278. Some of the headlines: President Joe Biden pledged unshakable support for Israel and hailed his administration's efforts to secure the release of hostages held in Gaza. Quote, We've gotten more than 100 hostages out, and we're not going to stop until we get every one of them home, close quote. Biden said at a menorah lighting ceremony at the White House. Of course, we're in the midst of Hanukkah. Happy Hanukkah to our Jewish brothers and sisters. Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky will come face to face with U.S. lawmakers today on Capitol Hill in a desperate plea for more aid in his war with Russia. The Supreme Court, the U.S. Supreme Court, has agreed to quickly decide whether former President Donald Trump has any immunity from criminal prosecution for alleged crimes he committed while in office. Special counsel Jack Smith posed the extraordinary question to the court on Monday in an attempt to bypass a federal appeals court in deciding a fundamental question of Trump's election subversion trial. The Texas Supreme Court has ruled against Kate Cox, the 31-year-old married mother of two who sought an emergency abortion because of the danger to herself, her future fertility, and her child. The child is not expected to survive the pregnancy. Ultimately, the state was left to pursue this procedure, and so now she and her husband have fled the state after she's had several medical emergencies in order to terminate the pregnancy. We're going to be talking about that more tomorrow on the Santita Jackson show, everybody. In Chicago, we'll have a high of 36 degrees. It will be cloudy. Minneapolis, St. Paul, 29 degrees. It will be cloudy. In the NFL, the Giants 24, the Packers 22, a nail biter, everybody, and the Titans 28 and the Dolphins 27. Really exciting game. Yes, I did see parts of it. In the NBA, the Bucks 133, the Bulls 129, the Pelicans 121, the Timberwolves 107, and Chicago will be playing the Oilers tonight in the NHL. You know, everybody, I'm always looking for socially conscious persons to help to sponsor this broadcast and keep it on the air. And so I'm really grateful to have a new partner in Credo Mobile. In Credo Mobile, they have donated over $95 million to progressive socially advancing causes, everybody. They are WCPT's newest sponsor. They're a new sponsor of the Santita Jackson Show. We could not imagine a more aligned partner than Credo Mobile. This America's socially conscious mobile phone company, having donated more than $95 million to progressive nonprofits working for a better world. With Credo Mobile, you get great coverage, all the stuff that you get from the big guys, the latest phones and plans you get from all of the big carriers. But with Credo Mobile, your money supports you and the causes that you support and the causes that support you. So what's better for all people on the planet? Credo Mobile, everybody. I want you to go to credomobile.com. That's CREDO mobile, MOBILE.com. credomobile.com, CREDO mobile.com, or call them at 877-346-0516, 877-346-0516, $95 million to progressive causes. You can't beat that, everybody. And you can get all the phones and all the plans that you get with the big guys. But now help someone who's helping you. That's the way business ought to work. It ought to be a reciprocal relationship, everybody. And with Credo Mobile, that's exactly what you get. Support the people who support you. How about that? 877-346-0516. What do you make of the Biden administration bypassing Congress to rush more than 13,000 rounds of tank ammunition to Israel? This is while the Pew survey shows us that 2/3 of Americans want a ceasefire. So Congress and the Biden administration are going one way while the American people are going in the other direction. Something about that just doesn't work. And yet you have people who are looking at this situation and they're saying, you know what, I'm going to run for office. I'm going to do something about this because I can't, Dr. King wrote a book entitled Why We Can't Wait. Well, Rami Blan said, this is why I can't wait. Now, he is a financial guru, but He said, I'm going to put that aside because I'm going to run for Congress. Young Palestinian American. I'm so proud of this young man. And of course, we've got brilliant social scientist Dwight McKee, attorney Mark Fancher, civil rights lawyer, civil libertarian, brilliant author, brilliant opiner on all things social and cultural and political and, quite frankly, spiritual and moral. Dr. David Gibbs, brilliant professor of history at the University of Arizona. First, before I get to you, Rami, let me have the panel react to the news that the Biden administration did an end run, Dwight McKee, around Congress to get these 13,000 rounds of munitions to Israel. What do you make of that?
Well, it's interesting that Biden's major argument against Trump is this anti-democratic, totalitarian approach to governments. And yet the majority of Americans want a ceasefire, and he circumvented not just the majority of Americans in their will, but congressional will. Congress has been debating how they're going to approach this munition situation, and he circumvented them. So they had no vote, even though they represent constituencies, represent different thought processes. He circumvented them and sent these weapons of war to Israel. It is inconsistent. The majority of countries in the world has voted for a ceasefire, and yet America has been the lone country to veto those votes. The majority of the countries in the world have voted for a ceasefire. And so for one who criticizes Trump for being dictatorial and circumventing democracy, this Biden administration is taking it to a different high or a different low, depending on your perspective. I think that it is you become merchants of war, merchants of death, and in a real sense, you've given an aggressive administration in Israel who is hell-bent on ethnic cleansing, it looks like, and creating the maximum damage. You've given them all of the weapons they need to do what they're trying to do. It's a sin before God, and it needs to be tried in the world courts. Who, if it was coming from a communist country, or is it coming from a third world country, or if it was coming from an Arab country, America would be screaming and hollering about how these are war criminals. And yet it's a different standard for ourselves.
Dr. Gibbs, your thoughts?
The United States is very much establishing itself in a position of isolation from the rest of the world to an extraordinary degree. In the Ukraine war, the United States had what I would call the NATO bubble, and that 15% of the world comprising NATO and U.S. allies at least supported the U.S. on Ukraine, even if the rest of the world didn't. On Gaza, however, what you're seeing is it's pretty much the U.S. alone that's taking this position. A very striking case, already noted by Dwight McGee, but I'll emphasize it again, was that there's a call at the UN Security Council for a ceasefire. It was unanimously supported, except for Britain abstained, America's closest ally. Britain abstained, and the U.S. vetoed it. And so the U.S. was the only country vetoing a ceasefire, saying that no, we don't want an end, or even a pause, an extended pause. And the sort of aerial massacre that's taking place in Gaza right now by Israel against the population of Gaza, even though the rest of the world clearly wants that, and evidently a majority of the United States, a majority of the American public want it as well, according to public opinion polls. And so what you're getting the Biden administration doing is basically saying that they don't really care about what the rest of the world thinks, even most of America's NATO allies, and they don't care about what the public thinks. And they're going to circumvent regular procedures and simply give Israel additional weaponry without congressional authorization. I think what this is going to have, most dramatically, I think, an effect internationally, in that it's going to accelerate the unraveling of American power globally, and that a large number of countries will see the extraordinary hypocrisy of America constantly scolding and wagging its finger at countries that their human rights records aren't good enough. They don't treat gays well. They don't treat women well. They're, not democratic enough, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Condemning Russia for engaging in attacks against infrastructure in Ukraine and so on. And here we are, supporting this government that has openly referred to the population of Gaza, the whole population, as human animals. I believe that was the phrase of Yoav Gallant, the Minister of Defense of Israel, openly saying they're trying to, indiscriminately kill and maim as many people as possible. Government officials in Israel are openly saying these things at the highest level, and the U.S. is backing them to the hilt and blocking any effort internationally to stop the killing. And so this is going to unravel American power globally and, increase the likelihood of a multipolar world. I like to think of these types of horrific situations with shall we say, a silver lining, and perhaps the silver lining is we will get a multipolar world, which I think will be a good thing. I think the U.S. has been a very destabilizing force in the world. We're seeing that now. And I think America's ability to do this in the future is going to be significantly eroded.
Attorney Mark Fancher.
I think too often we lapse into thinking or focusing exclusively on what the President of the United States does. And the truth is that any president, not just Joe Biden, but any president is nothing more than an errand boy for major multinational corporations, in particular the oil industry and others. And all that they do and all that they can do is to take orders from these powerful forces and get it done. And in recent decades, the way to accomplish the orders that have been given to administrations, whichever administration it might be, has been to circumvent what is purported to be the democratic process in the United States. And it has been necessary to do that because the broader population of the U.S. has grown in its political maturity and its political understanding. After the Vietnam War, the public in the United States drew a line. They would no longer allow their young men and women to be thrown into military conflicts, for no reason and solely for the purpose of advancing an imperial agenda. And that is a lesson that was well known to administrations. And so it became necessary whenever it was important for the multinational corporations, the capitalists generally, to accomplish an imperial mission. And they would give that order to a president. It became necessary for these presidents to circumvent Congress, to circumvent the political process. Even though the War Powers Resolution might require them to report and get authorization to wage wars, and they knew that they couldn't do it, then what they would do is they would use proxy forces, most notably in Nicaragua when they were trying to overthrow the Sandinista government in Nicaragua back in the 1980s under President Reagan. It became necessary to circumvent Congress by creating AFRICOM, U.S. Africa Command, most recent decades in Africa, where U.S. forces are not committed to actually engaging in combat in Africa because the U.S. public would never support it. So what they do is they have military, quote-unquote, advisors stationed the length and breadth of Africa who direct Africa's armies in missions that are intended to protect U.S. access and U.S. corporate access to Africa's wealth and power. And so you get these situations where they're operating with proxies, and if they can't do it with proxies, then they'll use drones. President Obama was notorious for doing it. And so now we find Biden, who is under orders to get it done in Gaza. U.S. oil interests are not in any way interested in any way surrendering their access to that geopolitically strategic region of the country where they need to have access to it generally. And now that they know that there's oil in Gaza, they've got to have that. They've got to have access to it. They've got to dominate and control it. And so Biden has to get it done. He cannot allow Congress to stand in his way. He darn well better get it him if, in fact, he's speaking his convictions.
Well, he actually said that many years ago. He's been self-declared as thus. And wow, here we are. And it is in this context that we have this young Palestinian American, I would say citizen, because, I mean, citizens should be active, Rami Blan, but you've been in the financial space. And October 7th really was an introduction for some, but this is October 7th began 75 years ago. And it is in this context that you decided, well, come on, let's just put it where it is. You decided to run for Congress. What were you thinking, Rami? You've got a comfortable life.
A comfortable life I was willing to give up.
Mm-hmm. Why?
And the reason for that is, my parents came here, both were born in the West Bank, to give me a life, to give me a better life, right? As opposed to what I know my family members who are currently living in the West Bank are dealing with now. They're scared, they're nervous, they don't know what the future looks like. And although I'm grateful for it, I don't accept that I get to live this way and they don't. And so that was definitely a motivating factor in me wanting to run, me wanting to make a difference, and me, living out the dream of my parents of making that difference, making that better world that they were so blessed to escape from and are scared to go back to.
Do you still have family in the West Bank today?
A lot.
Have you lost any family in this bombardment?
Thank God, no, I have not. There's no one, none of my family members are located anywhere near Gaza. We've always been part of the West Bank. The generations go back through the West Bank roots. But to say that we're not hurting or we're not feeling, just in any shape, way, or form would be incorrect. We feel it even harder because it feels like our brothers and sisters.
Well, because
powerless to do anything for.
Settlers are being armed and they're attacking Palestinians in the West Bank, and they've killed at least a couple hundred Palestinians in the West Bank. Am I not correct?
That is correct.
So this is not a safe space. I mean, while we're hearing about the genocide in Gaza, the West Bank is not a safe space for Palestinians either.
It's not. And when I say it's slightly better, it's better than the current reality of 90% of Gazans being displaced from their home. Is it coming? Is it possible that it's on the way? Absolutely. We don't know what the future holds, especially with, the right wing constantly declaring the West Bank as eternally theirs. We don't know if we're next. And that is the fear that a lot of Palestinians outside of my family members have.
Tragically, what's past is prologue. You are next, and it's not you are just next. You're right now. The settlers are being armed and they're attacking and killing. They're not just attacking Palestinians, they're killing them. So what's happening in Gaza, we're seeing that same genocide. It's just on a slower roll in the West Bank. We've got Rami Blan, former congressional candidate who his parents brought him over here. They are Palestinian, and they said, I want to get my son, have mercy, out of this. I want something else for my child. I want to leave home. Who wants to leave home? Nobody wants to leave home. That's what they had to do. But he's now looking back and saying, wait a minute, I love being an American. Maybe I have a better shot of helping my people over here. Like Rashida Tlaib. Like Casey Kasem, America's favorite DJ. We have a history. James Zogby, we have a history. So, Rami, stay right here with us. John Nichols of The Nation magazine and Aaron Niederman of If Not Now will be joining us. But, we want to hear more of your story. Stay right here, everybody. We're going to have a peace summit at Push. We're pushing for peace, everybody. That is on Friday. It starts, I think, at 11 o'clock. And at 930 East 50th Street, you need to be there. There are going to be sessions. And on Saturday, we're going to have a big coming together on Saturday morning. And If Not Now has something they're going to be doing this week. And so we're going to talk about that too. Stay right here on the Santita Jackson Show. Back in just a few minutes. Rami, stay right there. He has such a compelling story, does he not, Dwight? I know Dr. Gibbs is going to have to leave us because he has to go make someone cry. He's going to read someone's Somebody's going to say, I knew I should have studied more this semester. I knew it.
Well, it's been a pleasure to be on as always, Santita. Have a great day. Thank you.
Well, like I said, I'm just giving you a little bit of space right now because you're with the students. Yeah. So just when that's over, your vacation's up.
Sure, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's right. After this week, I'll be back to normal. Okay.
No, don't worry. You'll be back up. I couldn't resist this morning. I'm sorry.
Good. I'm pleased. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Blessings to you. Dwight McKee and Mark Fancher, Rami Blonde. What a story. Dwight and Mark. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that the commitment to sacrifice in behalf of any people, particularly his own people, is quite a tribute to not just himself, but how his parents raised him. Mm-hmm. And I hope he knows what he's jumping into. That he's really jumping into a shark's tank, because these people
wait a minute,
a whole
Dwight,
other kind of thing.
Dwight and Mark and Rami, these people bypassed Congress. You can't make this stuff up. And I guess they're going to let Miss Gay, Dr. Gay, keep her job at Harvard. Only heaven knows who she's going to be now. Bless her heart. I'm like, they're going to let her keep her job under these circumstances. I'm like, sweetie, you just need to go
Mr.
on.
Nichols and Mr. Niederman are on.
Yes. Okay.
Well, I tell you what you won't be.
What, free?
Is gay. Is
happy?
Gay.
No, she won't be. She
will not be happy. Yeah. Because it's going to be a lion's den now. Because now you walk in minefields. You have to be conscious about everything you say and everything you do, and how does that contribute to academic freedom is a mystery to me.
And she's gonna have to be cognizant of what she says privately, everybody, because believe me, she's being tracked, because that's how that works. John Nichols and Aaron Niederman.
Yes, I'm here. Good to be with you.
Well, you know what? I mean, in the spirit of this summit, I wanted to have a group with us today, John, because we're trying to bring as many people in as we can. We've got Aaron Niederman, of course, if not now. They're active every week. I cannot wait to hear what you all are looking at doing. I mean, as we all work together to have the summit that starts on Friday. I want you to give us the who, the what, the why, the when, the where. John Nichols. And I don't know if you've met Rami Blonde. He is a former congressional candidate. He's left this wonderful. I'm just really kind of yanking your chain, Rami Blonde, about this comfortable life, but that's not yanking your chain in the financial sector. And he's Palestinian American, and of course, he is a gift from Aaron Niederman. He said, "I think you need him on the show," and I thank Aaron for that.
30 seconds.
We need to have him because we need his voice. But he has such a compelling story. His parents came over here from Palestine. And he said, I can't be comfortable. I guess it's like Moses. I can't be comfortable while my people are suffering. So I'm going to run for
10
Congress.
seconds.
Dwight McKee said, I hope you know what you're getting into. I think he does. So stand by, everybody.
Stand by.
Okay, somebody needs to turn the radio down. Okay.
Change the world, change the world. We can change the world, we can change the world, change the world.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
War and hate to a place of love, it's not too late. Gotta save the children, we can't wait. Let's change the world. I am
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Santita Jackson Show, WCPT 820, the nation's largest progressive talk radio station, and AM 950 radio. The voice of progressive Minnesota. We will be, hey, Abraham down there in Brazil, my sweetie. We will be having a peace summit James Zogby, Reverend Jesse Jackson, they're convening, John Nichols convening, so many people coming together to call for peace and to show how we can get there, the actions that we need to take. That is at Rainbow Push on Friday and on Saturday. John Nichols is here to talk about that. Of course, you got Aaron Niederman from If Not Now. They're participating with us, but they're also doing some things this week that I want you to know about. But we've been talking, Attorney Mark Fancher and Dwight McKee, with Rami Blond, former congressional candidate, someone who really climbed the rungs and got into the financial sector. But he said, as a Palestinian American, I know my parents brought me over here so that I could have a chance to live. Remember, everybody, the UN has said that the worst place to be a child in the world is Gaza. And while we're not hearing about the West Bank, Israeli settlers are being armed, and they are not just attacking, they're killing Palestinians who are trying to live peaceably over there. They're being attacked on every side, in Gaza and in the West Bank. We must know that. And the breaking news is that embattled Harvard president Claudine Gay has gained the unanimous support of the university's board. She will be able to keep her job. But one wonders what she's going to lose in exchange. So, I want to, before I go back to you, Rami, I want to hear from you. What is this Peace Summit about this weekend, and who do we have on board? John Nichols.
Well, it's great to be with everyone, and I'm excited to hear more from Rami because obviously I cover politics for a living, and so I'm interested in people that are stepping into the fray, and I know how important it is to have representation, not just representation as we speak about it in civics class, the basic concept of people representing a constituency, but also representation of Congress that looks like America. And so very interested in his candidacy. The summit is, of course, the idea of the Reverend Jesse Jackson and his longtime friend and collaborator on so many important struggles, James Zogby. The summit on Friday and Saturday will bring together people of Palestinian background, of Israeli background, Jews, Muslims, Christians, people of other faiths, people perhaps even without faith, and people who have been Democrats in the past, Republicans in the past, conservatives, liberals, a wide variety of people, all of whom are concerned about what's happening in Gaza. And these are people who have always expressed sympathy and understanding for those who were harmed on October 7th in Israel, for the horror that occurred on that day. But what they are saying is that the horror that has taken place in Gaza in the weeks since October 7th has been so overwhelming that there must be a ceasefire. And what you'll see at the summit, and I think there will be a substantial crowd of people from all sorts of backgrounds and all sorts of experiences, what we will see at the summit is a description of what's going on the ground in Gaza from Palestinian Americans and others who know it in detail, from people who have worked there, people who have family there. You will also hear a great deal about the rising of people here in the United States to say that there is a need for a ceasefire. You'll hear from folks from If Not Now and from folks from Jewish Voice for Peace. You'll hear from Palestinian activists, some of whom have been working on these issues for 50 years or longer. You will hear also about the blacklisting and the efforts to silence folks on campuses, some of which you were just discussing a few moments ago, about the efforts to stifle an honest debate. But you will also hear, and this, I think, to me at least, this is the most important part of it, there will be a serious discussion about what to do going forward, and a deep discussion about how to take many of these messages about what is happening in a place of such meaning for Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. What's happening there as we go into a holiday season for many of these religions, and how to communicate about it, how to communicate about the need for ceasefire. And finally, there'll be discussion about how to move Congress and President Biden toward advocacy for peace and diplomacy as opposed to militarism on the ground there, and for a rebuilding and a renewal of Gaza, and also this core concept, justice for Palestinians. And that justice cannot simply be a rebuilding of buildings. It has to be an understanding that Palestinians must have a right to guide and control their own lives. And so it's a deep and important couple days. Reverend Jackson will be there. Jim Zogby will be there. Some members of Congress, I believe Jonathan Jackson will be there, and he will probably not be the only member of Congress. There will be religious leaders, Rabbi Jacobs, who traveled with Reverend Jackson on many of his journeys, and many, many young folks, folks from If Not Now, folks from other groups who will be talking about their experience. So it's a multi-generational gathering, and it is a gathering not to look backward, but ultimately to look forward.
It's going to be something special. We want everyone to come.
So.
What time does it begin on Friday?
I think things will begin around 10 to 11 a.m. There'll be some gathering before, and it will open with a series of panels to kind of give a perspective of where things stand right now, a little bit of that, but also to make this linkage, to make a linkage back to when Reverend Jackson went to the Middle East in the 1980s and got hostages freed, and went to Israel and Palestine in the 1990s and was so active in seeking to encourage and build the peace process and a vision for what might come next. And so we'll make some of those connections, but then very quickly go into a discussion of a vision for where we go next on the ground here in the United States with advocacy and activism, and for how we move Congress and the White House toward a broader vision of peace and justice.
Well, and this all began when Mrs. Jackson went to the Middle East on a fact-finding mission in the spring of 1979. Stokely Carmichael, Kwame Ture, Reverend B.W. Smith, Susanna Cepeda, and so many others went. They all went together to meet with Yasser Arafat, and it was there that they saw what was actually going on, because we had a no-talk policy. You could not discuss what was going on. And when Mrs. Jackson returned, she was so devastated. She went to see Andrew Young, who was the UN ambassador at the time, and she challenged him to meet with the Palestinian representative. He said, "It's the third rail of American politics, Jackie. My parents go back to their Dr. King days when they were all staffers for him." And she said, "What would Martin do?" She said, "You just can't sit here."
Yep.
And he was fired 2 weeks later.
Well,
and then my parents went to the Middle East again that fall, and they faced the consequences for it, but it was the right thing to do.
And Santita, there is such deep history here. And that's one of the things that's important. We have to be careful in a moment like this, not to be so wrapped up in the history that we lose sight of the present and the future. But that history is important because it is a history of Reverend Jackson, Rabbi Jacobs, and others who recognized, not recently, but decades ago, that there were possibilities. That isn't just that something unjust was occurring, but there were possibilities to address that injustice, and that there was successes in the past. One thing that we will recall is that in 1988, when Reverend Jesse Jackson ran for president of the United States, he brought this understanding rooted in your mother's experience, right, in her initial journey, and then the lessons that he learned along the way, the great information he gained from Jim Zogby and others, went to that Democratic National Convention and said, we need to talk about peace in the Middle East, not in some ethereal sense, not in some unfocused sense, but very clearly about the rights of Palestinians to be heard and to be respected, to be understood. And that 1988 convention, now, decades ago, was a transformational point in American politics. We didn't get any place, per se, from there, but we started a journey that in many senses continues to this day. And when we see now mass demonstrations on behalf of peace in the Middle East, we recall what Jim Zogby has said, that he can recall when there were 50 people, just a few dozen folks at that demonstration. Now there are millions of folks crying out for peace and justice. And this is justice for Israelis, justice for Palestinians, justice for Jews and Christians and Muslims. This is not an exclusive or a narrow movement. This is a broad movement, but it does have roots. And some of those roots go back to 1988.
Well,
and even before then.
And 84 and 80 and 79, and introducing the proper noun Palestinian into the political, social, and cultural context and discourse, because that was not there before. Aaron Niederman, I know you have a hard stop today, and because I want you to pivot us back to Rami Blan. First of all, what is If Not Now up to? I know you're going to be participating in the summit. But also, I want you to tell us why you felt it was important that Rami be a part of this discussion today. Is Aaron still there? Ooh, is he on mute?
He is not. I'll call him back.
Okay, call him back. Rami Blan, tell me, we're going to have this peace summit, and we are pushing for a ceasefire. What do you want us to know? I mean, we don't have enough Palestinian voices talking to us in in media. We don't hear your voices enough. We don't hear your experiences enough. Talk to me. I mean, what don't we know? What doesn't the American public know about this?
Surprisingly, in the last 60 days, there's been so much information that's been far more broadly.
Mr. Niederman is back on.
Before, but everything that the people need to know is out there right now. This stems back 75 years, more than 75 years at this point, and what people fail to understand, at least from the basics, is that there were a people here. They existed. Whether you want to call them an official state or whether you don't want to call them an official state, under the British Mandate or even previously under the Ottoman Empire, these people still existed there. And all the world powers came together and in 1948 decided on a partition plan, which of course the people that already existed there were going to deny. And ever since then, it has just been a back and forth, a tit for tat. You did this, we did this. And the only thing that occurred more than anything else is just the pain of injustice to the Palestinians as they felt they've just been crushed into a smaller and smaller and smaller territory. And with that crushing, you've seen the resistance movements have turned violent. Not that I'm advocating for it, not that I believe that's the method to achieving peace, but that is the outcome of what we've seen, right? I heard a podcast yesterday by Ezra Klein. Nimrod Novik said if he was in that position, he would take up arms and he would rise up against an occupier that continuously crushes the hopes and dreams of any type of future state for the Palestinians. And so I think, one, it has to be acknowledged that forgiveness hasn't gone away. There's still that bitterness that all of this that was there before that was built is gone. And once that acknowledgement takes place, just like I've learned over the last 30 years, the Jews have a place in the land of what is now Israel. They have a religious tie to it. And they also, maybe not in the most recent future, but thousands of years ago, and to this day, still talk about their religious ties to the land and what it means to them. And they've always had an affinity to come back, and you've seen that rise in the last 100+ years, and they've gotten themselves back to where they want to be, but at the expense of the people already living there, and without taking that into consideration, without considering the needs or the wants Palestinians, or at least granting equality in their eyes, you'll never have peace. And that has to be something that both sides come to, that sort of vision, that without each other acknowledging their past and their histories, there can't be peace.
Aaron Niederman is back with us. Aaron from If Not Now. I know you are going to be participating in the Peace Summit on Friday and Saturday. But you all have things going on. But you brought Rami to us. And so I want you to tell us what If Not Now is up to this week. Because this movement toward peace, John Nichols, is something that is ongoing. It's not, it's something you just can't stop. You can't stop, don't stop, won't stop. But I mean, tell us what you're doing and why you felt it was important that Rami Blond be a part of this conversation. Aaron Niederman.
Hi, Santita. Good morning, and good morning, everyone else here. I was really excited to bring Rami on for a variety of reasons. One of them, of course, was to meet you and get connected to other folks and uplift some of the work that him and his peers are doing. You know, I think you do such a great job of uplifting these underrepresented voices. And I also think Rami shows a unique perspective, you know, with family in the West Bank, of course, and also as an aspiring politician, he has a very particular perspective that he comes at this conversation from. You know, there's a variety of ways in which people get involved in the struggle for Palestinian freedom, whether it's through artistic ways or as organizers, and Rami sees a path through electoral politics, and so I think that that's a unique and important one. And then to talk about what we have going on this week on Thursday, we're following our vigil that happened actually last Thursday, where we had over 100 Jews and allies turn out to light candles in a park up in Ravenswood. Just clearly a real swelling of interest in what is a bit of a dissent from the central Jewish narrative in America, you know, calling for the ceasefire and refusing our grief to be leveraged for increased violence. But this Thursday at 4:30 p.m. at Daley Plaza, three main groups are coming together in coalition. If Not Now, Jewish Voice for Peace, and Jewish Fast for Gaza. We'll be celebrating the last night of Hanukkah, but really it'll be more of a vigil and musical march. So we're going to sing together, join together in prayer as we light the candles, have some traditional food, and there are more details that I can't share at this time, but I think the main thing I want to emphasize is that Hanukkah, when it's translated, means rededication, and we'll be rededicating ourselves to the ongoing struggle against collective punishment and massacre, apartheid and occupation, and especially we'll be rededicating ourselves in the face of what has been some decrease in media attention, basically encouraging the media and the public to hold their line, to keep their endurance in this fight. We'll be reaffirming what is the true narrative of Hanukkah, that just because it is about rededicating the temple in the face of Hellenistic onslaught, you know, historically, it does not support the ongoing violence from Israel these days. And really, it's about an uprising of an oppressed people against their oppressors, about bravery in the face of a powerful opponent. And just as the Maccabees rose against King Antiochus, this coalition of Jews is rising up against this dominant narrative. And so, you know, again, while this is typically a joyous time in the year for Jewish people, we are mourning this immense loss of life, and we won't continue business as usual. We don't think the U.S. should send $14 billion in unconditional weapons aid to Israel. We oppose the conflation of anti-Semitism and anti-Zionism in this House resolution that we've seen recently. We want an everyone for everyone hostage swap, a lasting ceasefire, and we'll continue to mourn the dead and fight like hell for the living. And we'll be doing that on Thursday at 4:30 at Daley Plaza.
Can we just show up?
Yeah, you can show up, and you can make sure you get all the details on our social media. If Not Now Chicago, JVP Chicago, it's all there. And yeah, it should be. You know, we'll have a children's block and some moments at the beginning for people to be there with their kids. You know, Jews and allies are always welcome. And yeah, I mean, that'll be Thursday, and then I'm really excited to join you all for this Peace Summit on Friday and Saturday too.
Well, we're going to get everybody out to both events, 4:30 Daley Plaza, and of course our Jewish brothers and sisters. It's the Festival of Lights. We used to celebrate that when I was in preschool and in nursery school. Loved it. And Rami Blond, what else do you want us to know? Do you think you'll run for Congress again? I mean, because you've seen Rashida Tlaib really break a lot of ground for you, but Jim Alvarez did the same thing, but she's doing it he was progressive too, but she's, wow, way down the road. When you see her, for example, and other allies, the squad, is that inspiring to you?
Absolutely. Every time I see her speak, and there's a moments of doubt. It is seeing her fight against those sharks that Dwight was mentioning earlier. That says, even if I run and I lose a million times, if I can convince more and more people to do the same, go in their district, knock on doors, run for Congress, then eventually the plenty of fish in the sea mantra will take place, and we will drown out those sharks, send them somewhere else, and go find some other blood to go after. And I think that's how change occurs, is through those movements like that.
John Nichols, when I hear Aaron Niederman, when I hear Rami Blond, I feel like the seeds that were deposited in this earth these many years ago, it's like they've taken root, and they're the fruit. You just see them going on. I want to remind people, Daily Plaza, 4:30 on Thursday. You need to be there. We need to join with our brothers and sisters in this holy season, whether you are of faith or whether you're agnostic or atheist. It's the goodwill. There's nothing like turning around and seeing your neighbor just in fellowship with you. That was the name of my church, our church, Dwight McKee. What a fellowship. The relationship is so important. The fellowship. And we need that. 4:30 on Thursday. And then, of course, get on over to Push at 9 o'clock. That's when we open on Friday. And we're going to begin everything at 10 o'clock. And you know how we do that too. And it's going to be great for us to be together. John, I'm excited that we are coming together. All backgrounds, it feels like, it feels like a real rainbow, John.
It is a rainbow. It is a rainbow, and that's a place. And we'll talk a little bit about this, I suppose. One of the great challenges is our media's approach to everything that's been happening. And I don't mean media like this show, which has been great and deep and thoughtful. Of course. But as our friend from If Not Now just well stated, our media tends to have a real struggle with staying focused on something, maintaining a clear focus. But also there's a deeper struggle, which is telling the story of what's happening in America. So many of the stories about the calls for ceasefire and about the activism that has occurred have been negative. Right there, it's the college presidents before Congress, and it's the divisions in certain places and stuff like that. But what is a positive is the fact that you are seeing multiracial, multi-ethnic coalitions being built. Jews, Christians, Muslims, Palestinian Americans, Israeli Americans, primarily led by young people, saying there's got to be a way out of this and giving us a vision for that way. This is a deeply painful and difficult time, but amid that pain and difficulty, this is also a hopeful time. And I do wish more of our media reported at least some of that hope.
Amen. Well, that's what we do here. Everybody, 930 East 50th Street. On Friday, get on over to the Peace Summit. You might be surprised at who's going to be there. It's going to be fantastic. White's going to be there. Got to get Mark Fancher in from Michigan to be there. There's a whole lot that's going to be going on, and then we're going to have a culminating rally on Saturday. You don't want to miss it. 4:30 p.m. Daily Plaza here in Chicago. Our Jewish brothers and sisters will be celebrating Hanukkah, and we invite the children and the young people, the grown folks, and all of our elders to be there too. It's going to be something wonderful. It might be chilly outside, but we're warm in our hearts. It's going to be a great thing. The more the merrier. The more people you get out there, the warmer it's going to be, everybody. So stay right here on the Santita Jackson Show. Stay right here. I'm going to get some closing thoughts from my panel. Rami, I hope you'll stay with me for a hot second. Aaron had to go to work. And Tracy, a new listener, I want to explain to you why I don't talk about Trump all the time. I want to explain that to you on the other side. It's for good reason. It's for good reason. Everybody stay right here on the Santita Jackson Show to get some closing thoughts. And just right here on the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel. Love you, everybody. Thank you, Alex, for a great show. And thank you, WCPT and AM 950 Radio, for this platform. God bless everybody. I'm having a hard time reading today, Tracy. I had to have eye surgery on Friday, so excuse me. I see you are Tracy Smith. You said, "Are you ever going to talk about Trump wanting to be a dictator?" And then you continued, "You're a new listener, and you referred to me. I've never talked about Trump's actions against Americans, America, and democracy." The thing is, I've always felt that we have fallen into a trick bag, Tracy, and you and the other Tracy Lewis. One of the things my parents will tell you, and Dwight McKee, you're still there?
I am.
And Mark Fancher,
I
you still
am.
there? Is Mark still there? Rami Blan, are you still there?
I am still here.
I want to share something with you. My parents came to Chicago in 1964. My father had a full scholarship to the University of Chicago to get a master's in divinity, having turned down a full scholarship to go to Duke for law school. His mentor, Reverend Dr. Samuel Proctor, one of the preeminent theologians of the last century, was his college president and said to him, "I think law is going to be too limiting for you. I think you need to go into the ministry." And so off to the University of Chicago, my father went on a full Rockefeller Foundation grant. And he was thrown into it. Dr. King did not bring him here. My parents were brought here because my father was seeking his education and my parents were seeking to build a life. I was a toddler and my mother was pregnant with my brother, Congressman Jesse Jackson Jr. Having said all of that, my parents say, looking back, they can see that one of the great gifts that they got, Dwight, was having another mentor called Richard J. Daley. People might be surprised by that. They said they learned so much about politics from him, about power from him. They learned how to fight. They learned who to fight, right? And one of the things that they learned from Richard J. Daley, the Mayor Richard Daley, the man known affectionately in American politics as Boss, probably the biggest mayor America has ever had. In fact, he's been dead about 50 years and we're still living on a political system that he put in place. Are we not, Dwight?
Yeah, we are.
I mean, he was absolutely brilliant. And one of the things that he taught all of us, and he certainly taught my parents, was never to call the name of your opponent. Never to call the name of your opponent. When you call the name of your opponent, you blow them up, you make them big. When you do not call the name of your opponent, number one, it irritates your opponent, but it also does not enlarge them with the people you're trying to inspire. What I seek to do here is to inspire you to get registered to vote, to get active in the society, to get active in the American community, because it's yours. And so if I sat up here and talked about Trump, as the media have done, I would make him the true opposition. What the media have done is set him up to become president again. Certainly, they have set him up to be the Republican nominee because every day since the end of the 2020 election cycle, they've called his name and they've made him the problem. That was a mistake. Dwight, you say you don't turn a monster into a martyr? Isn't that what you said, Dwight?
Right.
Okay. So calling his name every day, as if he's the greatest threat to democracy I have seen. No, he's not. Because see, I came here from people who were enslaved. Excuse me, on top of people who had their land stolen from them. Talk to indigenous people about democracy. They haven't seen that yet. No treaty that has ever been made between them and the American government has ever been fulfilled. They have been lied to for hundreds of years. Every movement that we have created, Black people, has made America more democratic. The absolute autocracy was slavery. What are you talking about? So if you think that I'm going to sit up here and talk about Trump every day as if he's my biggest problem, he's not my biggest problem. I need to get people registered to vote. I just told you that in Georgia and Michigan, you got about a 10-point split. Trump advantages Biden by 10%. But when you bring Cornel West and Robert Kennedy into the mix, they take 26% of the vote because that's what people are like. No, I want Cornel West. I want Robert Kennedy. If you would stop talking about Trump every 5 minutes, you could deflate him. But no, you inflate him by giving him air, by pumping him up with air. I'm not going to do that. And I know, and Tracy, you can be 24 and well aware of the history of this country. I'm 60 years old. I've lived more of it than you have, than you've been alive. And that is not condescending. I'm trying to share some things with you before I get out of here. You've not lived my life. You've not seen the things that I've seen. When I've gotten intelligence professionals on this show, they all smile and say, well, I've got something else to do, but we owe your family, because every last one of my family members has an FBI file and a CIA file and profile. So some things you need to step back on and learn from. So like I'm sharing with you, when you bring up Trump every 5 minutes, Dwight, and Rami, let that be a lesson to you. In politics, you don't have enemies, you have opponents. Win the like vote, Rami. Make your point and keep on going. And you register people to vote and you keep on going. Do not get caught in the muck and mire of having a fight with someone. Don't do it. Not only do you lose the like vote, you will lose your race. Dwight McKee, why don't you speak to what I just spoke to? Just inflating Trump every day.
Well, I think that most people are more concerned about issues in their everyday life. How do they eat? How do they go to work? How do they retire? How do they support their family? How they pay for their children to be in school? I think those are kind of the dominant issues that people deal with every day. And both Biden and Trump's relevance is tied into both of those. On them to conform, because ultimately you're the reason they're in office and the reason that they are paid to serve. And so I think that psychologically, when you give somebody that much of your energy or that much of your time, it suggests a fear and a conclusion that you can't beat them. They can't be beaten. You give them a power that many of them don't deserve to have. So I think that what you need to do, what we have to do, is to stay on our agenda, rally the people around our agenda, which in most cases is also their agenda, and keep our eyes, what we call in the movement, keep our eyes on the prize. Mm-hmm. And the prize is not a defeat of Trump or a defeat of Biden. The prize is the commitment to justice and equity and quality of life for everybody. That's what the prize is. That's what Dr. King talked about as the prize. That's what he talked about as the mountaintop, is equity for the disenfranchised, for the oppressed, to operate, in whatever they can get away with. It is the people that's vigilance that keep most of them honest and accountable.
Tracy continued, Ms. Santita, did you hear Trump make a comment on making police officers immune to lawsuits if he gets in office? Biden tried to do the same thing. About 2 or 3 weeks after Rodney King was beaten half to death and that tape was revealed, he went on the floor of the U.S. Senate and pushed for a police officer's Bill of Rights, which would have done the same thing for them. Biden has been horrific on racial justice matters. He has been. But you know what? He's done great things, some really, really solid things since he's been in office. And all I'm telling you is that when someone gets into office, everyone was frightened to death of Lyndon Baines Johnson. Oh gosh, what's he going to do? This Texan. Oh, and you kind of knew who he was, and up, in terms of your interactions. Well, he got to be one of the great presidents of civil rights. Been no one greater. But that's because we were marching and pushing and advocating. That's what you have to do. Don't make this personal. This ain't personal. Politics ain't that. It is not that. It isn't. And please, I mean, if you want to start going down people's records, please. One thing you don't know is that I lived in New York when the Central Park Five, when that happened. I know, in fact, they were arrested and they were taken, Rami and Dwight, to the police station across the street from my apartment building. I'm looking out, I'm seeing all of it. You could barely get out of my building, the front door, because the police had clogged up the street and the press had clogged up the street. They held those boys in that station for several days, trying to extract confessions from them while Donald Trump pulled out full-page ads on all of the New York papers calling for their prosecutions and the death penalty. I remember that too. I also remember losing 40,000 Black college students, HBCU students. That happened not just on Obama's watch, but because of their policies. I also know, and we started closing dormitories at Dr. King's alma mater, Morehouse College, and started looking at closing Black colleges. I know that the money that got put back into Black colleges got put back. Rami, well, you want to get into public service. I see that. What's next for you?
You're right.
Because I absolutely want you to come on the show and weigh in on issues, because people need to hear you. And when people become familiar with you, it makes it easier for you to run the next time. Dwight, would you not say that?
Yeah, I would say that.
I mean, well, you know what? Before I say anything, Dwight, what advice would you give to young Rami?
Make relationships, develop relationships. We used to operate off a premise that services premises. That is, many people that you can help, they must learn how to become what they can become. Will in many ways return the favor, and they will commit to your aspiration. And so, if you develop relationships, show up, be helpful, be informed, and be too informed. Then you develop a constituency and people who are committed to you because they think you're committed to them and their cause. And so I think you're on the right track. I just think you have to be consistent, be vigilant, be secure, and not take things personally. Because at this level, nothing is personal. It's all expediency. And so, you need thick skin and a clear head.
And a tender heart.
And a tender heart. And maintain your own values and your own virtue.
That's it. I mean, I was reading an article about my father not too long ago, a current article. And they said, one thing I can say about Jesse Jackson, he does not hold grudges. He doesn't hold them. It won't serve you well. What's next for you, Rami?
Well, Dwight, thank you first and foremost for that advice. I do appreciate it. I have been taking as much advice as I can get, and so please don't think that it fell on deaf ears. Now, Santita, to answer your question, what's next? The focus is advocacy, right? And doing the things that Dwight just mentioned, being part of initiatives and organizations on the ground, developing that constituency, if you will, so that way once the cards fall into place, right, it feels like the time is right. I've developed enough goodwill amongst people and developed relationships where I have a strong backing of people that believe in my vision. That's where I think I will stray back into the political realm. But for now, I think the most important thing is hearing more from people, developing those relationships, and then going from there.
Well, where are you now? Where are you trying to run from?
So, do you mean district wise? Sorry, what do you mean
District-wise.
by that question?
District wise, excuse me. Let me be more specific.
Yeah. So, I have been looking at District 5 from a congressional standpoint. So that's again a powerhouse, if you will. Right? He's been there for 12 plus years. Plenty of money behind him, and he's been a fairly middle of the road, moderate candidate. Mike Quigley.
Absolutely. Okay.
So it's no easy task, and I understand that, and so and that's why I wanted to better focus on IC constituency first, and then try my cards again when that moment comes.
Well, I will tell you this. My brother Jonathan is the second one of member of my family to go to Congress. That was not something that he had planned to do. He and his wife are now empty nesters and they were moving on to another phase of their lives. But what happened to him was he was opening up a group of mobile phone stores. He got his MBA from Northwestern and all of that. And he thought, having some mobile stores would benefit the community, helping people get breaks when people don't have good credit and all of that. And as he and his friend were looking over walking out of it one night, because he was going to have these big openings on one day, several of them on one day. The police arrested them and put them in the back of the car without charge. And of course, when that happens to you, it is frightening and you don't know if you're going to survive it. And the police were hostile to them. These were two black men in suits. Does not matter what, like my brother Jonathan said, it's not your pedigree. It's not your degree. It's your pedigree. And you are black men. And you are out here, and you are suspect. Long story short, I mean, his partner was frightened to death, understandably. They were like, he said, "You don't know who you've got. This is Jesse Jackson's son." And Jonathan said, "Please be quiet. Number one, it shouldn't matter who my father is. And it does not matter because if these people want to take us out, that's what they're going to do." On and on they went for more than an hour. The men finally ran their plates, found out who Jonathan was. And the police officer, as he was trying to get my brother out of the cuffs, said, "Why didn't you tell us who you were?" He said, "It shouldn't matter. Because I am who I am. And this is not about being Jesse Jackson's son. This is about what you do to a whole lot of people. So, no. Well, tell you, we don't operate that way." And that kicked off his activism. And he found a man named John Burge, Rami, a former commander who it turns out had been sexually molesting black boys and young men for decades in his station. Cattle prods in their anuses and on their penises and on and on and on. And he was living in a comfortable retirement with a wonderful pension in Florida. And my brother had a one-string guitar for several years and pursued him until they got him prosecuted and got that and justice was served to him and other police officers who were involved. And the community saw him and they saw his sincerity. So when the congressional seat opened up, he was asked to run. He initially turned it down. He said, "Y'all," but it was the people who asked him to do it. And I hope that can be a lesson for you because at this time, the people want their voices in the state house, in Congress, and you just stay with the people and they will see you, Rami. I promise you they will. And just know that you have a space and place on this show to talk about we talk about a whole range of issues, and I'm anxious for you to come back.
Thank you so much. Greatly appreciate it. More than you know.
Well, what else do you want to say before we go?
Last thing I'll close with is, so to everyone listening, I hope that they also feel some sort of encouragement to do the same in whatever district to make that difference. And whether that's the state level, city level, county, or even federal, if they've at least heard one thing, it's that the path is not easy. There is a lot of obstacles that you have to prepare for. But, once you enter this world, if you will, and you start talking to people, and you start listening to people, people are no different than you and I, and what we want, which is a home and a safe place and justice and equality. And so I really hope that the next round of representatives for us have that in mind.
Dwight McKee, your final thoughts?
Assalamu alaikum. My brother, see you Friday.
I can't wait. I cannot wait. Sending you much love. Rami, I hope you'll be with us on Friday at Push at 930 50th Street here in Chicago.
I wish I could. I will be in Charlotte for a wedding.
Oh, bless your heart. Well, look, have fun at the wedding. But when you come back, we want to see you, okay?
Absolutely. Looking forward to it.
God bless you. God bless you. And have fun at that wedding.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Everybody sending you so much love. And Tracy Smith and Tracy Lewis, thank you for being here. And Joyce Anderson and Angela and Michelle Torres and Robert Williams, all of you. I'm so glad that you were with us today. And let's keep the conversations going. Hey, Ms. Zenobia, you know I love that name. Hello, love it, love it. And AW, I'm just sending everybody so much love today. I'm sorry, I have to get up on the screen because I can't see anything. Oh my gosh. I cannot see anything, but this will end. This too will change when my eyes are healed. So, but I'm sending you all so much love today. And thank you for being here. Can't wait to be with you tomorrow on the Santita Jackson Show. Love you.